Hi, my name is Becky Meredith. In this presentation, I'll be discussing the environmental and cultural factors of the former felon population. The media portrays former felons in several different ways. Mostly and most commonly is by fear. We see felons portrayed in the news and in TV shows, mostly crime shows, that they're always the bad guy. And this can sometimes be a misconception, but an example of this, are the crime shows and how we perceive life is in prison or jail, or life is for someone who has been convicted of a crime. When something is so far removed from our daily life, we rely on any representation provided to form our understanding of that concept. And so we may have this perception of how life is for these individuals, or how life is for someone who is in prison. And that can be completely incorrect. But we rely on that representation because we don't really know for ourselves. And another example of this that I thought of is I recently did an intake on an inmate who came into jail, and it was his very first time being incarcerated. And when I did his intake, he was pretty confident about how things would be. And a couple of days later, I saw him again in our clinic to do a withdrawal assessment, and he explained to me that once he got to housing, everything was completely different, that his perception of how jail was going to be was completely inaccurate, and he had formed his opinion by watching TV. So just a real life example of that. Something else that we look at is how felons can be presented to us. You can see the cover of the Time magazine with O.J. Simpson's picture. The first photo saying "An American Tragedy" with his mugshot and how he appears in that photo. And then if you look at "An American Tragedy" with his football photograph, the presentation of that is completely different. You look at his mugshot, he looks mean a little bit. In his football picture, he looks happy and young. And so the way that the individuals are presented can make a big difference on how we respond to them. As far as in their environment and family support, Prison Fellowship, which is a group that is kind of an activist group for supporting individuals who are re-entering the community, they give on their website 8 ways to prepare for a loved one's re-entry to the community. And so family support is a huge thing for these individuals. It helps them to get back on their feet. So the 8 ways that they describe are to understand their probation and parole. A big part of this is understanding where they can be, what they can and can't do, and being supportive of those restrictions. Saving money to help them find a job, just support themselves once they're released from jail, planning for their relationship and how it's going to be when their loved one is released, looking ahead to the future, finding potential support groups and churches, which is very important, especially for the individual returning, getting ready for a job search, which can be quite difficult because felons are often overlooked for employment, talking to their children, helping them deal and function with the change in their lives, and completing counseling will help them to work through difficult situations. So family support is a big part of the success for these individuals. As far as their peers, it's recommended that they offer the same kind of support as the family, and these individuals may need to separate relationships from their peers. Their peers may be the influence that was negative for them that led them to where they were. As far as the cyclical nature, these individuals have a high risk for recidivism. They often return to prison. Half of individuals that return to prison return on a violation for what their original charge was from. 13% of these individuals return for a new crime that they've committed. And overall in the United States, individuals that have been released from jail or prison have a 63% rate of recidivism, which means they will return to jail. As far as the legal and political system, like we just mentioned, they have a high risk of recidivism. 3% of Americans charged with a federal crime will receive a trial by jury. That's a very small percentage. A lot of these individuals will immediately go to jail once they've committed another crime. The federal grand jury cases, as of 2010, have an indictment rate of 99.99%. So these individuals that have committed crimes, federal crimes that are felonies, have a higher rate of just even returning back to prison or jail if they make a mistake. Again, according to the Prison Fellowship, some of the things that are happening right now to work on reentry programs is a big part of changing the political system here. Providing probation and parole opportunities for these individuals to successfully re-enter the community is a big part of helping them to become better. Another thing that is a big part of helping their success is just to reduce their collateral consequences by helping to change laws to maybe restore their voting rights, which are taken away with a federal offense. To implement fair change hiring to help felons feel vested in part of their community will help them also be successful. As far as barriers for this population related to their culture would be their language, which can limit their education here in the United States, and when they're less educated, they have a less chance of having a good job that provides a good income for them. And then another factor is just the acceptance of their cultural norms. Sometimes these individuals will be ostracized from their community for their cultural beliefs. Internationally, just a few interesting facts. 19 million Americans are incarcerated as of 2010. And the U.S. has the highest rate of incarceration in the world. Now, these numbers aren't defined by felony charges, but this is just overall. And in the United States, there's 665 individuals per 100,000 people that are incarcerated. And so internationally, we have the highest rate of incarceration. So this population makes up a big part of our whole population as the United States. Another interesting fact is that 61,000 individuals are housed in the U.S. on immigration detention, and so those individuals will probably face deportation and go back to countries where they came from. If not, they'll be housed here for quite some time, which we end up paying for as our country. So that has an effect on us as well. As far as health disparities for this population, I just went ahead and combined all of the aspects here on this one slide. As far as their socioeconomic status, they may not have employment because it's hard to get a job as a felon, which limits their income, which limits their ability to have insurance. They may not have good housing. They may be homeless. All of those things play a part in the health care that they receive. As far as race and ethnicity, that also might play into their employment opportunities. Religion, I didn't really find much information about religion, other than they may have more support through a religious community to help find employment, to help find health care, just basically to help provide more resources for them. As far as gender, if you're looking at their class and employment, income, insurance, they may have lack of preventative care, which we know causes long-term health effects. Especially, you could look at one factor with females is birth control, and if they are in a bad situation and having children and having to have a high risk of going back to jail or prison, that could be an issue. And then their geographic location, if they are having employment issues, then they may live in a lower income area. They may not have neighborhood access to good health care, and they may not have transportation to be able to access that health care. As far as biases, these individuals may be following what they have learned growing up. They may come from a household of individuals that have criminal behavior in their background. They may have grown up in a low-income area, and they may not believe that they need health care. They may not believe that they will get good health care just because that's what they've always known. An explicit bias is that they may be denied the best care because of our personal preconceived judgment of these individuals. And again, this could also relate to presentation. If someone comes in looking like they're a felon, you may have a different judgment of that person. If they come in looking like the average everyday person, your opinion of them may be different. As far as internationally, in the US, healthcare costs are very expensive. Insurance costs are expensive, and these individuals may be facing low income and may not have access to good health care here in the US. They may be limited in travel because of their felony charges. They may not be able to go to other countries to help access more affordable care for them. And then some of these individuals, like we talked about, that are being detained on immigration issues may be receiving good health care here in our prison system, and then may be deported to where they may not be able to continue that care. Something else interesting that I found in my research when looking at international issues for felons is the biggest thing that came up was voting. Most individuals who have been convicted of a felony charge then relinquish their right to vote in the United States. And there's a lot of debate on how that affects our polls here in the United States. So just something interesting is that 21 countries in the United States, there's no restriction for voting for individuals that have similar charges. And 14 countries have selective restrictions. 10 countries have a ban on voting while in prison, and only 4 countries ban individuals from voting after they are released. So this may play into just politically how different things could be in our country compared to other countries. And we know that voting and politics also influences healthcare. So I hope that you learned something interesting about this population. Thank you.